Hey you guys, Yulia here. So I'm starting to get a lot of questions as for elephant ear storage. And I store my elephant ears 3 different ways. And the first one is very simple, is to treat them as houseplants. So I have this beautiful mojito elephant ear and also black coral, which is gorgeous, nearly black in color. And I have been storing these guys as houseplants for a number of years now. But there are a couple of steps that I take before I bring them inside. And the first one is to check for any insects. And that is super important because if these plants have a couple of mealybugs and I bring them inside, all of my plants will be infested within a couple of weeks, and I will be fighting with that infestation the entire winter. And my pest management approach is usually to start with the mildest method first, which is water. So I just take some water and just spray the plant, make sure I wash it completely off. I sometimes would dunk this pot in a bin with water, and all of the bugs kind of float on surface, and I remove those. And then I dry the plant out and I bring it inside. Now, if the infestation is really bad, I would resort to insecticides, and in this case, organic ones. So I use neem oil or insecticidal soap or Captain Jack's solution right here. And I make sure I spray the entire plant down, make sure I get the crevices because that's where bugs and especially mealybugs hide. And I let it all dry and then I bring it inside. Another tip is when you bring these plants inside, find the brightest location in your house because these plants are used to daylight right here. And it's really bright and the air is very humid. And so if you have been watching my channel for a while, you know I have a plant room specifically designated for all of my house plants and plants that I'm trying to store over the winter. I have a couple of humidifiers going in there to keep the humidity up. If you don't have a designated place for your house plants or your plants, you can put it in the bright windowsill, make sure the humidity is up by spraying it once a day or at least a couple of times a week to make sure that these plants are happy. They're usually not as happy as if they would have been outside, but they definitely make it through the winter, and then in the spring after your last frost is passed, you could just place them outside so they can enjoy the summer. The second way of storing elephant ears is in pots. So I have this beautiful heart of the jungle elephant ear. You can see the stems are just so dramatic. And the first thing I do is detach the drip line. They are set on the drip line for the entire summer, so I detach that. I check it for any insects, and then if there's any insect presence, I of course treat it. And then I put it in the basement in a cool and dark location. By cool, I mean about 50 to 60 degrees. It could get maybe to 65, but not warmer than that. And I stop watering this plant and I let the soil go completely dry. And what's going to happen is the leaves are going to start to dry and the plant is going to go dormant. Then I will probably water it once a month during the winter, but just enough to keep the humidity up here. And then once the leaves dry completely, I actually would remove them. So let's pretend these dried. So I would just cut them and leave maybe a couple of inches off the ground. And that's it. Once these are cut, it's pretty much like an empty pot, and I keep it until end of February or March, and then I start watering it again. And once I start watering it and I place it a little bit warmer location, I see some shoots start to appear. And by the time of our last frost, middle May, I see some leaves and I plant this, I put this pot outside, and then the plant flushes out and puts on a lot of bulk over the summer. As for the big guys, you can also store them as houseplants if you have a gigantic house or maybe a greenhouse that is heated, or you can plant them up in pots, let them go dormant, and store them in the basement. But I like to store these elephant ears as corms because that doesn't take up too much space. And I normally wait until our first frost to do that, so the leaves are all wilted and dead, and then I dig them up. But I'm going to pretend that the first frost already happened, and I'm going to dig one up today to show you how I store them. This was a big plant to dig up. I mean, just look at the leaf. Isn't that so cool? That's why I love growing this plant. They're so dramatic. And I know in tropical environments they're considered weeds, but here in New Jersey, I think that adds so much to the garden with that drama, and like pairing them with grasses or like fine textured plants really works for me. But anyway, going back to the corm, before I dug it up, I removed all of the leaves because after our first frost, it would have turned black and really wilted. But I left some of the stems because they still have some of the energy in them, and it's going to go back to the corm. So what I'm going to do next is just clean up the roots and clean up as much of the soil as I can. And the next step is to store them in a warm and dry place, maybe in a cardboard box, so all of these dry. That will take probably like a couple of weeks here in our climate, and then I will pretend that the leaves and the stems have dried and send all of their energy back into the corm. But for now, let me just shake off the soil here. As I was shaking the soil off, it actually separated into two plants. So this is the one I originally planted in the spring, and it made a baby, which they tend to do. So let's pretend it's been 2 weeks. All of this has dried, the roots have dried, the soil has dried. So I will continue to remove the roots, cut them off completely. And then once this is dried, I will just cut it off as well. Just like this. In a couple of weeks, they still may have some juice in them, but I would just cut it like right around here. Same with this one. So satisfying to like slice it through like that. All right, let me go wash these off so you can see better what's going on here. Here's what the corms look like right now, and you can wash them off before storage. However, be careful not to introduce a lot of moisture in this area right here. And then what I do is I usually check it for any rot or any soft spots. If there is rot, not all is lost. You can just cut it off, let it cure. It will actually callus over and your corm will be okay. This baby looks very healthy. Looks really weird. Looks like an alien creature or something. So this is pretty much it for digging up the elephant ears, and next step is storage. Here I am on the kitchen because the lighting is just so much better than the basement, and the basement is where these eventually will go. Now, before I show you how to store these, I just wanted to say something important, and this is probably the most important part of this video, is don't sweat it. Gardening is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a joyful activity. And if something does not work out, it's just an experiment. If you kill a plant or it fails to store over the winter, it's okay. You'll get to try it again, and I've killed more plants than I care to admit. I actually have a spreadsheet of all of the plants and all of the species that I've grown in my garden, and there is a huge number of plants that are marked dead because I just killed them. And you know, something may work for you, but it may not work for me. Something that works for me may not work for you. And gardening is very regional. So everything I show you in these videos is more of a guideline than a rule. So don't listen to what anyone else says, even me. Just try for yourself. Again, you can try my method, or you can read something else. You may try that next year. Just do it. Don't have this analysis paralysis, just garden, because it's just so much fun. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, you can see that these corms look a little bit drier and ready for storage. Now, for years, I stored them in just a plain paper bag that I would get in our local supermarket. Our local supermarkets stopped supplying paper bags, so now I'm going to try to store them in the cardboard box with some newspaper, just probably the same thing. And I found that elephant ear corms actually store very easily. They don't need a lot of pampering like dahlias or caladiums do, because there's just so much moisture in these corms. There's just so much energy that they will make it over the winter. At least that's my experience. And because there's a lot of moisture, you just have to check for any rot in the middle of the winter. Around January time, I just go downstairs and I kind of not poke, but I touch the corm and make sure that there are no soft spots. And again, if they are, you could just cut them off and let them callus over and they will be just fine. So what I'm going to do this year is just take some newspaper like this, a couple of layers. I don't think I need a lot of it. Wrap, and this thing is big, by the way, just love it. Wrap it just like this, and then plop it in a cardboard box. I'll do the same thing for the baby. If you see some really small offshoots of babies, unless they detach by themselves, I leave them with the main corm. And if they detach like this one, I will store them separately. Make sure they don't touch, because this way they can sort of spread disease or bacteria and rot. And this is pretty much it. And now they go to the basement. All right, I placed these in the corner of our basement where the temperature in the winter is about 50 to 60 degrees. And I check them at least once a winter to make sure they're not rotting. They're rarely dry because, again, there's so much energy in these corms. And that's pretty much it. I just cover up the box and all set. I'll see them in January. All right, you guys, this is pretty much how I store my elephant ears. I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comment section below. I will try to address that. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Can't do this. All right, I have 2 minutes to record this before the next plane comes. Is that a plane coming? There's a plane coming. I hear it. Yep, there you go. It's kind of blurry. Okay, what's going on over here? Camera is right in my face. I mean, it's the sun. I mean, there's nothing I could do. I sound so dumb. Can I fix this? Like, no. All right, the next way is 3 ways. That's 2, that's 3. I'm exhausted. What if this doesn't work?